another edition of Dolphins Detail. You are joining us on YouTube, where we have finally figured out how to use webcams. Thanks for joining us. It's Jake Mendel and Marek Brave. I just tried to combine our names. Before we get to today's topic, which sounds a little dry in special teams, but I promise you, we do have some spices to help jazz things up a little bit. But before I get into all that, Marek, we're recording on a weekend. How you doing this weekend?
Yeah, I had a little bit of extra time. Normally, I'm a big weekend guy. I always got the plans going with the kids. If not the kids, I run independent wrestling shows on most weekends. But I found myself free on a Saturday afternoon after I got home with the gym, and I said, Jake, let's hop on here. Let's talk about kickers, punters, returners, all of the players everybody cares about the most, right? This is going to be our most exciting episode. But before we get into all of that, I want to thank everybody for continually watching these videos. We've been doing these for a couple weeks now, and each video gets more views than the last. So thank you all for that out there. And if you haven't checked them out yet, I debuted my Marek's Minute mocks, 60 seconds or less, all four Miami Dolphins draft picks done on this YouTube channel on the shorts section of the YouTube channel, and I would appreciate it if you guys went and checked those out as well, because I'm very bad at the technology. So it took me a little bit to figure out how to do all this, and I've been having fun with them. They're not supposed to be super serious or anything like that. They're supposed to be entertaining. I put on the old wrestler ball cap for that one and give you an old wrestling promo, but tie it back to our Miami Dolphins. So go check it out if you're looking for a quick little mock draft. Nothing but fun there. So.
And that's kind of what's been exciting about, jumping into YouTube right after, podcasting for so many years is there's all these visual elements we get to use. And one of those elements is live shows. And Merrick, that was a perfect way to set up not only that the fact that you're killing it with the shorts, but we are looking forward to our first live show this Wednesday, where as Merrick Shorts, we're going to focus all the way in on the draft. So be sure to stay tuned for that. As someone who follows nothing about college football, this is going to be a great opportunity to really not only dip your toes in, but kind of just nosedive as a completely dry person, full body experience of what the draft can look like, especially for the Miami Dolphins with just 4 picks. But Merrick,
Special
I
guest. Don't you can't forget that we got a special guest for this live stream, don't
do
we?
we announce the special guest or do we just say special guest?
Oh, I don't know. Keep the people in the dark here, or no? I think we announce it, don't we? We let people know we're getting ourselves a little draft expert on with us on Wednesday. Brian Cat NFL on Twitter. Give him a follow. Brian Cat NFL. He's going to join us on Wednesday during our live stream, and he's going to educate us on some players the Dolphins could be targeting. Maybe some players that we haven't even heard of. I don't know. Like you said, not a big college football guy. I do a little bit of scouting in my amateur way before the draft, but Dolphins only have 4 picks, so they're going to have to figure out a way to either create some more draft capital by doing some trade downs, or they're going to have to make sure they nail those second and third round picks if they're going to get a couple of quality players for this upcoming season. But yeah, Brian Cat NFL on Twitter. Give him a follow. He'll be joining us this Wednesday on our first ever live stream. Fingers crossed, as long as everything works out technology wise.
As long as we know where that on button is. Yeah, Brian's awesome. He's been someone who's in the field of, the Dolphins blogging world universe for some time now. The Dolphins used to host this event called Web Weekend, 10 to, yeah, 8 to 10 years ago, where basically they would invite the best blog websites to kind of come for a weekend, interview players. There was like an award ceremony. It was basically their like nice little PR thing for all these little small guys, just saying thank you for, talking about us all year round. And I got to meet Brian there, and it was a great time. And my favorite visual for Brian is that every year for the draft, he actually has one of the it's like you're going back to school. He has this huge, thick binder for each and every draft class. So I'm very excited. I'm going to hope he can show us a couple of those binders, maybe not even jump into it, just the pure thickness to get an idea of how much draft content he absorbs. So we're very much looking forward to that. But Merrick, we're going to get into it. We're talking about special teams today. We're going to get down to the details about this group. We're going to answer 4 big questions here. Where do things stand? What makes them good? What needs to happen this offseason? And what does success look like on the field? Of course, it's important to keep in mind Byron Jones, his money comes off the book June 1st, so some ripplings can happen there. But otherwise, Merrick, I think this is a group that we are pretty, I guess, set in stone with, to say the least.
Yeah, I think you're right. There have been some rumblings that the Dolphins are interested in bringing in some competition for Jason Sanders for that starting kicker job. Sanders has been a little up and down for the Dolphins over the last couple seasons after having one of the best seasons that a kicker could possibly have just a few short years ago. Last year, he kind of started out slow. Struggle a little bit, but kind of rounded into form as the season went on. Made that game-winning kick against the New York Jets to seal a playoff berth for the Miami Dolphins, and then had a pretty good game against the Buffalo Bills in that wild card game as well. So I can understand why the Dolphins are rolling with Jason Sanders as the starting kicker, but I can also understand why they may be interested in bringing in some competition during training camp.
And that is going to be the biggest question we talk about here with Jason Sanders. But Vic, this is a very interesting group because everyone wanted to talk about the Dolphins offense, this high flying group when healthy, they put up a lot of points. And the defense had its flashiness, I guess in the anti-flashiness with blitzing on like third and 11. But those two groups were where most of the conversation was had. But what people don't really mention about the Miami Dolphins is they had the 32nd ranked special teams group according to Pro Football Focus. So
Is
with
that bad? Is
I'd
that
say
bad,
it's
Jake?
I'd say they're probably in the bottom half of the league. If my math was right on that one. And it's one grading system, right? But it just kind of is a highlight to, hey, this was a very inconsistent group at times. I mean, I assume you get to 32nd ranked by having a butt punt. I mean, I don't know how many other teams have that, and I don't know how much that grades you in. But to me, I kind of see that as an opportunity for growth, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, in the terms of Jason Sanders being money from 60 yarders. Jake Bailey being this absolute stud of a punter, or Braxton Berrios returning to all pro form, but genuinely just like maybe a few yards here and there can make the huge difference when you're competing for not only a playoff spot, but when there's those three wild card spots, when there's a division up for grabs. I mean, those couple little yards is the difference between a win or loss, which is the difference between a different seed.
Yeah, like they say, it's a game of inches. It's a game of yards, and getting a kick returner who can get you those extra yards on those kick returns, those punt returns, that helps an offense out. Getting a special teams. Or a kicker that can make those kicks and make those extra points, and you're not kind of clenching your butt every time he lines up for the kick, and you can kind of count on him knowing, hey, this is our dude, he's going to make this. That makes a head coach's job a lot easier. That makes every other player on the team, it makes their job easier knowing that, hey, you can count on your special teams unit. And hopefully the Dolphins will be able to improve in that area. Good news is they can't get any worse. 32nd is the worst unit in the league. So you're not going to get worse than that. So we'll just have to find out how much better they can get. There was a lot of talk this offseason. At the beginning of the offseason, that the Dolphins might look to move on from special teams coordinator Danny Crossman. Well, that didn't happen. Danny
Mhm.
Crossman, even though he was the coordinator for the 32nd ranked special teams unit in the NFL, he was retained by Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, and he will be the special teams coordinator for the Miami Dolphins in 2023. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't agree with that decision. In years past, though, Danny Crossman has been a good special teams coordinator. He's been in the league for a very long time. He's a coach with a lot of experience in this league. And when you have a head coach like Mike McDaniel entering his second season as a head coach in the league, you do want to surround yourself with tenured coaches. So,
Mhm.
excuse me, Crossman is one of those guys, and that could be a reason why he was retained.
And that's kind of the big point where I want to get into when we start talking about what gives this group an edge. I think it's the idea of keeping around Danny Crossman. Mike McDaniel's quotes talking about Crossman were along the lines of, I'm in the office with this guy every day. I see what he does and I see what we do, and I don't really know what else he could have done to improve us, which is not only a glowing endorsement for the coordinator, but it kind of hints at how rough this situation was at special teams. So, Merrick, you consider Danny Crossman coming back. When you think that, hey, they gave Vic Fangio this huge contract, why didn't they want to give Darren Rizzi the entire bag to have him come back and be the special teams coordinator? What gives this group an edge, considering there's the foundation in place of a coordinator, but two of the three big pillars in punting and kick returning is still going to be new this season?
I think what gives this group an edge is the fact that you have a kicker, a punter, and a primary return man who have all been all pro at their positions. Am I right? In the
You are correct. So
past.
all team for all pro first team. There it is. I was just combining them all in all the wrong ways.
There it is. All pro first team selections, not recently, not last year. They've had their years, they've had their moments where they have been the best, not just one of the best, but the best at their respective positions in the league. So if we can get those guys to return to that form, then we'll be cooking with gas.
I have to ask you, man, when you consider the fact that the Dolphins made a lot of changes last year, starting with Mike McDaniel, you bring in Tyreek Hill, you change things up on the defensive end. What does it do to a team when you're focused on the top tier, like your offense, you're adding like a Bradley Chubb on defense, all of a sudden special teams is put on the back edge. And it seems like last year it was kind of put on the back burner. Yeah, Thomas Morstead, let's bring him in. He's a little on the older side. He took a huge step back this year. And then you're a kick returner. I mean, to go with Cedric Wilson, someone who I think entering last year, returned 12 kicks. He returned 12 kicks in the previous 3 years after returning 17 punts last year. So I think what gives this group an edge, Merrick, might just be the fact that it's no longer band-aids and they actually had a couple minutes to sit down and actually think about this group.
Yeah, I think I liked Morstead a little more than you did last year. I obviously the numbers don't lie. His net per yards average per punt did go down from previous years. I thought his directional punting was pretty good for the Dolphins last year, getting those inside the 10-yard line. So you got to give him props there. But yeah, you're right. You especially with that Berrios signing, you're bringing in somebody who that's kind of what he does. Like he is that slot receiver, but also that kick returner. Like he specializes in that. So you're not sending somebody back there like Cedric Wilson, who honestly they really just did that because they're trying to figure out a way to make him earn his payday because he wasn't earning it receiving the ball, as that number three receiving option that he wasn't actually. So you brought him back there. He had a good return in the playoff game against the Bills, but wasn't really doing much other than that. So now you get Berrios back there, somebody who specializes in returning kicks, and that should help uh, that portion of special teams improve.
And that's where I think this is going to be one of the funnest groups to watch in the preseason in training camp because I think that it's going to be one of those things where, think back to last year, it was the Tyreek Hill deep ball, like how could Tua underthrow him? I think there's actually going to be some interesting clips about guys returning kicks, guys kicking the ball because it's going to be new, it's going to be different this year. Braxton Berrios is going to be one of the most interesting to watch, Merrick, because where's the line going to be of him being a slot receiver and him returning kicks? You compare him to Raheem Mostert last year. His longest kick return was 11 yards larger, so he's a little more explosive. And I think we all can kind of agree we want Raheem Mostert to be healthy to run the football. But where's that point where maybe Braxton Berrios is that slot receiver the Dolphins have been looking for a couple of years? Is there a line that can be drawn where it's all right? He was a great returning kicks, but like Tyreek Hill, like Jalen Waddle, he's not on that level. I understand that, but we want him to be healthy for what he can do on offense.
Yeah, I think they have options at that number three wide receiver slot with Cedric Wilson, with Eric Ezukamba. He was drafted for a reason, and he needed kind of a redshirt year in the NFL to get up to speed. The way Texas Tech called in their plays, they just held up like poster boards with like your face on it, and it meant
The purple
do
guy from Grimace. Here's Grimace from
Gr-
McDonald's. Go run that play.
Oh, now I'm getting hungry. Uh, yeah, so he needed a year to get up to speed on how things work in the NFL and how they bring those play calls in and whatnot. But he was killing it in the preseason for the Dolphins, and he could be a legitimate number three option. And if he does, look out. And that could relegate Barrios to mainly a returner's role. But that's not a bad thing because Raheem
Absolutely.
Mostert was your primary kick returner last year, but he was also your number one running back. And running backs get dinged up just running the ball, let alone returning kicks. So if you can keep Mostert healthy by putting Barrios back there as your primary kick returner, I think that's a win in multiple spots.
Let's transition here. Off-season priorities. So for me, when I'm looking at the off-season priorities, this group is kind of set. They hired a new punter. You hire the new kick returner. So for me, man, it starts with Jason Sanders still needs to discover that time machine. There was this idea that, hey, maybe it was the placeholder that was making him struggle a little bit. He wasn't holding the ball correctly, especially when you consider that 2020 season when he was an all pro first teamer, 8 for 9 on kicks over 50 yards, completed 92.3% of his kicks. Merrick, each of the last 2 years, he was 2 of 6 from 50 yards or longer. So with that in mind, he was 12 of 13 from 40 to 49 and 7 of 7 from 30 to 39 last year. His cap number for 2023 is $3.7 million. Dollars. It just save about 100,000 cap space. So is there any world where Miami, who has seen this guy make these 50 yarders, even though he struggled recently, could lose his job if it costs the Miami Dolphins a couple dollars on top of that?
Yeah, I think he's going to need to show them something in training camp, show them that he is capable of being consistent from those longer distances. I mean, this is the NFL. You got kickers out here consistently making 55 yarders, 56 yarders, 57 yarders, up to 60 yarders. And it felt like every time Jason Sanders lined up for one of those last year, you just knew deep down he ain't making this. And
Mm-hmm.
sure enough, like you said, that stat, you said he was 2 of 6 from 50 yards or
Each
more.
of the last 2 years.
So yeah, I mean, right there, I'm not great at math, but that's 33%. That's not
Nice.
good. That's not good. That's not good, and that's 2 years in a row. So it's becoming more of a trend than an outlier. So I think he's going to need to show them in the offseason that he can still hit those kicks because if he
Mm-hmm.
can't, somebody else can, and they will eventually turn to that revolving door of kickers and try and find one that they can settle on who can stay consistent and make sure they put those 3 points on the board. Whether that is an undrafted rookie, maybe that's a veteran that they can sign to compete in camp. I doubt you'll see a trade, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I think more likely than not, Jason Sanders is your kicker for 2023, unless things go way, way south, go sour, and he starts shanking things left and right, which is, you know, also not out of the realm of possibility. So we'll we'll keep our hopes up that he can round into form, and if he does, that should be a big boost to this offense and this entire team, really.
Yeah, and I wonder how quickly like the Queasy meter would go up with him compared to a rookie kicker. Like, are the Dolphins, if they're sitting there and having the discussion, if we're there week 3, are we more comfortable Jason Sanders kicking a 50-yard game winner or undrafted rookie? I wonder where that line is where they'll accept like, hey, we'll take a $400 million cap hit on top of signing someone else, on top of getting Queasy with the rookie. That's how tough Jason Sanders has been to watch. And then other offseason priorities, I don't think we're not gonna know much about the Gunners and different things like that about who's going to be out there on special teams until free agency shakes out, until after the draft, some undrafted free agents are found. Those good old acorns, as our good friend Josh likes to call them.
We would
And
also be the only YouTube show in the history of Dolphins YouTube shows to break down the gunner position on special teams units. We'd be the first and probably only YouTube show that could bring you that content. But you know what? If you want it, you let us know in the comments and we will get it to you. We will. We want to please you guys. We are men of the people here.
usually on my weekends, I'm busy scheduling wrestling shows. I'm with my kids. But now that we're talking about Gunners, I put it all on hold for it.
Seriously, F them kids. I'll talk about gunners if you need me to.
Let's wrap up here, Barrick. What does this unit look like on the field? Where does the success come from? Uh, I don't think this group has to move the needle. I don't think it has to be a top 10 group. I just think a little more consistency, maybe that 10 to 20 range, an average punt going closer to that 47 yards that we both saw at a Bailey and Morstead in 21 compared to 2022, where they both took a step back. Jake Bailey, he did suffer a lot of, or he struggled with injuries last year. That was kind of how things got derailed with the Patriots. So you're kind of hoping to catch that lightning in a bottle with him. 47 yards would be near the top. It's not even, I think that'd still only be like top 5, top 7. So, hey, I'd settle with that. And if Jason Sanders can go from like 2 of 6 to 4 of 6, I think those are the two biggest keys to seeing this unit look a little better next year.
Yeah, Jake Bailey, like you said, he battled those back injuries, and then he kind of got into a little bit of a spat with the New England Patriots organization, and they were trying to take away his money, and he was filing a grievance, and I think that's all since been settled. But we might see ourselves a couple punter revenge games this upcoming season when Jake Bailey gets to kick against the New England Patriots twice, and you don't often get to say that, punter revenge games. So we might see that with Bailey. What does it look like on the field? It looks like I said earlier, even if the Dolphins finish the 2023 season with the 31st ranked special teams unit, that's still improvement. That's still better than
Still
they were
better.
last year, which was the 32nd ranked special teams unit. So it should be better. It absolutely should be better. If it's not, Danny Crossman, you are gone this time. You might have should have been gone this past offseason, but they kept you. But if you give us the 32nd ranked special teams unit for 2 seasons in a row, 2 years in a row, you're gone. Guarantee it. So it should be better. Like you said, it doesn't have to be a top 10 unit. It can be somewhere in the middle of the pack, and that will help this team greatly moving forward.
And with that too, we saw how important the kicking game is. The Dolphins needed a huge kick against the Jets to make the playoffs, and it's going to be that way again, right? No matter how good your team is, that special teams is a necessity just to have that trust in one kick, one punt, even, and that's going to be the key. Having that trust that that one kick when they need it the most is going to be made. Uh, Let me see here if there was anything else we didn't touch on. Merrick, this isn't the sexiest position. I get that. But when you consider how bad the Dolphins were last year, and when you consider you have two former All Pros coming in, I think there's just such a large area for growth. It makes this more of an interesting unit than it would be in other years. I mean, I think Braxton Berrios can do a lot, even if it is just a 4 or 5 yard growth in terms of growth on punt and kick returns. I think that's huge. I think having a kicker who can flip the field. I think the Dolphins really struggled with Morstead sometimes. Late in the season, there were maybe a couple windy games that we might can even go back and look at in the future where a couple extra yards maybe sets up a weaker kick return. Who knows? Either way, man, I think there's a lot of meat on the special teams bone that the Dolphins just kind of ignored and left seasoned and sauteed last year.
Yeah, I hope you're right. From your lips to Mike McDaniel's ears, uh, this we've done 22 minutes on special teams. This is longer than I thought we
World
were going to be
record.
we were going to be able to get to. I wonder how many other shows will cover special teams on the YouTubes and the podcasts moving forward this offseason. But Jason Sanders, he's been a hero for this team in the past. He was a hero last year by making, like we talked about in a previous episode with our buddy Houts. That's a top 5 feel good moment for the 2022 Miami Dolphins when he makes that kick against the Jets that sends the Dolphins to the playoffs. So if he can give us some more of those moments in 2023, then we'll be ready to rock and roll with him going forward. If Jake Bailey can get his back situation figured out, he should return to form as one of the top punters in the league. And Braxton Berrios, what we get out of him as a receiver is added bonus to me because I think he was brought in mainly for his special teams prowess. So it should be an improved unit, and we'll just have to see how it plays out when they get on the field.
That is all the time we have. Actually, that's all the time we need for special teams. But thank you so much for tuning in. Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Where's the Queasy meter with Jake Bailey? Do you think he'll be back on track? Jason Sanders, what on earth? Can we find someone who holds the ball the right way? I think that's what some people on Twitter still think it is. But thank you so much for tuning in. For Dolphins Detail, we will talk to you next time.